welcome viewers, welcome back to this NPTEL course on education for sustainable development. So, in the last class I think we are discussing about transformative learning and what should be the ESD, pedagogy of ESD for this transformative learning. So, let us continue with this concept. So, the key methods of ESD, ESD for key methods of ESD that is collaborative real world projects. So, as it is primarily based on experiential learning, so in service learning oriented projects. So, for campaigning for the different sustainability topics. So, collaborative real world projects or experiential learnings focusing on the real world problems, crisis. So, that would be one key aspect of ESD. Then second is that vision building exercises, like conducting different kinds of workshops, scenario analysis, any kind of storytelling method or utopian storytelling method, science fiction thinking, futuristic thinking, or fore and back casting. So, these are the different kinds of visual exercises, vision building exercises, visual exercises, that is to predict the future, to learn from the past and to focus on the present. So, how to correlate, how we can link up with the past with the present and the future to have a futuristic thought and perspective. So, these kind of exercises can be given as assignments. So, then the third component will be analysis of complex systems, including the community based research projects, action research projects, stakeholder analysis, data analytics, actor, that means who are the major actors and the players in the scenario, their analysis, modeling, simulations, then systems games, so brainstorming. So, these kind of things can also be conducted from time to time for analyzing the complex systems, complex problems from a broad perspective, holistic perspective. So, these kind of exercises can also be given as an assignment, project, etc. Then yes, of course, critical and the reflective thinking, as I have been saying again and again, that critical thinking, reflective thinking are the key cognitive tools, you can say cognitive tools for enhancing our thought process, for enhancing our analytical skills, our sustainability competences, our vision of the world. So, that also includes the fishbowl discussions or the reflective journals, either from the journal topics, research topics, or randomly we can discuss about any critical event from the current scenario, that can also be done. So, with the debates, with the discussions, with the dialogues, with the threadbare discussions, brainstorming sessions, that is to promote the critical and reflective thinking. So, we should not be complacent about what is going on, the status quo, or we should not be overwhelmed with yes, whatever we are having the resources, we are happy with, we should not be complacent in that way, but rather we should critically evaluate everything and reflect on our own thought process, our behaviors, our habits, our resources, and what could be the possible impact on the society, on the environment for the futures, on our economy, everything. So, that is critical thinking and reflective thinking is not to judge others, not to develop the judgmental thinking or criticizing the different policies, etc. That is not the true actually moral of critical and reflective thinking, but etc. But it always stimulates our thought process towards more understanding, better understanding, more metacognitive knowledge, and to have a proactive visualizations, vision for visionary ideas and thoughts for the future planning, future cities, future education system, future infrastructure, future energy sector, future water resources, all kinds of things. That is the future planning, for the future planning. So, reflective thinking and critical thinking are you can say the fundamental base of transformative learning as well as of the ESD. So, here education plays a synergistic role in achieving the aspirations embedded within the 2030 and the SDGs. So, education, definitely education, sustainable education, and ESD especially plays a very vital role in synergizing all the aspects that are embedded in 2030 agenda, within the 2030 agenda as well as across the SDGs, across the 17 SDGs. So, thus we can say that ESD will require the individual to acquire the key competencies, sustainability competencies to align with the to the notion building of transformative learning. So, what are the key components, how to deal with the situation, how to develop this develop the different resolution strategies, hypotheses for the transformative learning, then again how to execute it, plan it. So, in addition to other generic and context specific competencies, so the key competencies on ESD sustainability competencies should be developed to align with the notion of transformative learning and to develop the mastery and competency to deal with the emerging social problems, economical problem, environmental problem, and to deal with it in a very strategic way. So, education here is a catalyst, is a change agent, and especially ESD is the tool within the framework of education to not only to embed all the objectives and targets of SDGs across 17 SDGs, but as well as the 2030 targets of exclusive that means that is exclusive focus on quality education and SDG 4. So, for that matter we need to develop key competencies, sustainability competencies besides other context specific and the generic competencies. So, here you can say it is a competencies proposed by the assessment of ESD including SDG 4.7 that is being introduced by Wick et al. So, these are some of the key competencies that he and his associates have identified. Like you can see, as we can see, intrapersonal competency, interpersonal competency. Intrapersonal competency, these are the examples given here, you can go through it. But intrapersonal is that within the individual, how better we can understand ourselves, our inner self, our inner. So, like the metacognition gives us the ability, capacity to understand our own thought process, cognitive process. Similarly, intrapersonal is how much we have established the rapport with our inner self, our individual self, in the sense that we know our likings, dislikings, strengths, weaknesses, abilities, capabilities, efforts, values, everything we know about. We know about everything of our individual self. That is intrapersonal, and again we are very much happy with, and we have established a good rapport, and we have the right kind of self identity, because we have already known ourselves, understood ourselves, and we have established a bonding, a relationship with our inner self. So, there is no gap of our real self and our ideal self, or our outer self or our inner self. Outer self in the sense the way we present ourselves in the society or to the outer world, that is our outer self. But the inner self, actually what within our individual, our own self, what we are actually, what are our characteristic strengths, our personality traits, our attributes, our attitudes, our values, our thoughts, our capabilities, our efficacy, all these things. So, intrapersonal relationship is that developing a right kind of self awareness, so that we can better understand ourselves. We can it can help us in stress management and in interpreting the different kinds of situations, that is in meaning making, connections with the self, capacity for the inner peace, then mental well-being, self-reflection. So, definitely intrapersonal competency definitely helps us not only in understanding our own self, but it enhances our self-efficacy, our adaptability, our ability to deal with the stress, and meaning making for any kind of goals and objectives and activities. We can connect ourselves with not only our individual self, inner self, but also we have the capacity to establish a good healthy relationship with others. So, mental well-being, inner peace, these are the outcomes of this intrapersonal, because intrapersonal competency helps us in not only in self reflection and critical evaluation of our own ideas and thoughts more objectively, but it also enhances our ability, capabilities in terms of better self awareness, self efficacy, self competency, self esteem, all these things. Then comes here interpersonal. So, once we are good in intrapersonal, because we know ourselves better, why we are doing something, we have every justification and reason for what we are doing, what we are thinking, what we are behaving, acting and reacting. So, that intrapersonal competency, or you can say intrapersonal intelligence, it helps us in establishing a healthy interpersonal relations, that is between the individuals. Between the individuals relationship, there is interpersonal relationship, like for example communication skill, it enhances our communication skill. Interpersonal skills includes empathy, being empathetic towards others, compassion, leadership skills, teamwork, collaboration, cooperation, and participation in social activities. All these things are the result of this interpersonal relationship, which is the outcome of also developed intrapersonal intelligence. Once we have established a link, a rapport with a bonding with our individual self, then we can definitely we can establish a relationship with others in the community, with other individuals in the community, because understanding our inner self will help us in understanding others' behavior, others' thoughts, others' likings and dislikings. So, then again that comes again both these two intrapersonal and interpersonal competency helps us in future thinking. Future thinking like visualizing looking at the present, critically evaluating the scenario, and then having the assumptions and having the vision, the predictions about the future. So, future visioning, then developing the scenarios, that is from our imagination, from our broad outlook, that we can imagine that that like other countries, like other developed countries, we should have this kind of facilities, so and so, etc. So, developing scenarios, backcasting, recognizing the heritage, intergenerational equity. So, not only the generational gap, but intergenerational equity. That means always we can focus on the positive aspects of resources, even if it appears in the outset, it appears to be very challenging, very risky, very complex, etc. But from looking within into the system and the context, etc., we can explore the resources. So, that is the futuristic thing, because having the visioning, that means with a positive mindset, so that we can also explore from the zero situation to we can also explore the positive outcomes in terms of exploring the resources, developing the capabilities, qualities, then training, through training, etc. We can also, and identifying, not only identifying our heritage also, but taking the advantage of traditional knowledge. Then we can also create, you can generate the resources, we can utilize those resources and mobilize those resources for future sustainability. Then systems thinking. Systems thinking, as we have already discussed, a holistic perspective. System thinking means working with the complex problems, having a holistic vision of the thing, promoting resilience. Definitely positive thinking, along with the positive thinking, we have to develop the resilience, that is the spirit to come back, to fight and come back to the normal situation. That is the promoting resilience, understanding the tipping point, key points, and feedback loops, etc. So, how to get the learning experience, how to get the learning experiences or tips from the feedbacks, how to work on the feedback, how to utilize the feedback, and what are the critical points. So, developing resilience, all these things, that is systemic thinking. Systems thinking is that having the holistic perspective to looking at the look at the complex situations, the complex problems, to identify its loops and to resolve the issues, along with our enhancing the capability of optimism, positive thinking, resilience, and positive attitude. So, then disciplinary and interdisciplinary is definitely sustainability is such a concept, sustainable development is such a concept, ESD is such a tool to establish all kinds of discipline within the disciplinary and interdisciplinary linkage in topics, interdisciplinary research, interdisciplinary implications. So, interdisciplinary things, that to understand the link between knowledge and the experience, critical thinking, discipline specific framing, interdisciplinary things, expressing multiple ways of knowing. Like for example, every discipline has its implications, but we can also, by developing this interdisciplinary thinking, we can relate to our domain knowledge with other domains, other subject domains knowledge base, and can establish a linkage, can establish an implications, and can make it relevant for the social benefit. So, understanding not only our own knowledge across the discipline, but learning from the experience, learning with the critical thinking, and in an expression of the multiple ways of knowing, and your creative ideas, innovative ideas and thoughts. So, that can also be, that interdisciplinary and disciplinary competencies can also be developed. Then comes your normative and the cultural definition. Normative cultural competency primarily is that more of the universal learning about the universal values, ethical responsibilities, okay, developing a world view perspective. So, awareness of the universal values, undertaking the justice, then having the cosmopolitan perception, transcultural undertaking, transcultural perspective, then the again awareness of the local context as well as the global trends. How can we establish a bonding a collaborative cooperation between local and context, local requirements, local need of the people along with the global trend, global requirements. So, these are things. Then the strategic competency is that planning, decision making, like after critical analysis and evaluation we can come to the conclusion, and we can rightly identify the cause and effect relationship, we can address the critical issues, then take the decision accordingly, planning, decision making, implementation of the policies, and addressing the challenges, organizational development, from the this experiential learning, the learning by doing, observation, then abstract conceptual formation, concept formation, then experimenting on these. So this learning cycle from concrete experience to observations, reflective analysis to planning to action to learning by doing to hypothesis, all this learning cycle of the school learning experiential learning models, that will help us in taking the strategic decision making, planning and strategic decision making. So, these are, we can say, the key competency areas within the framework of ESD, that is interpersonal, future thinking, that is having the vision of developing the future, developing the scenarios of the future, then recognizing the heritage and leveraging the cultural factors also. So, intergenerational equity, cultural factors, how to leverage it. Then systems thinking, having a holistic perspective, the disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge, translation of knowledge, implementation of this knowledge in terms of action and research. Then yes, normative, that is the which are based on the universal laws, rules, etc., and the cultural perspective. So, both the normative and cultural competencies and the strategic competency to take the final decision making and planning and execution of the action plans. So, here now again the Han et al. And Barth et al. They have again exclusively given the suggestion for the intrapersonal competencies. Just now that we have discussed now intrapersonal, but like within ourselves. Intrapersonal is that presencing, ability to stay present in our internal environment, at the same time engaging with our external. That means, how much do we understand ourselves, focus on simultaneously focusing on the external requirements and external external demand, or engaging ourselves in the external events. So, that is presencing. So, here we can also say it that being mindfulness. Okay. So, that means, we can better understand ourself, to present ourselves, engage ourselves in the present current event, along with staying in touch with our internal environment. Okay. So, to establish a linkage between internal environment and external environment by engaging ourselves. Second is the ability to hold contradictory thoughts and feelings without having to resolve the contradictions. Like suppose in our life very often we used to face contradictions. So, the paradoxes, different kinds of paradoxes. We have to, we should not be in a dilemma. We should not get disturbed. There should not be. We should not face any kind of dissonance, serious cognitive dissonance because of these contradictory thought. Because these are the you can say facts of life. We can take it that facts of life. We have to face sometimes. We have to face the different paradoxes of life. So, therefore, how can we hold the contradictory thoughts and feelings at the same time, and we can rationalize it, we can justify it, we can understand it, we can rationalize. So, without having the result to contradictions, there is how to live with these contradictions. We can say there are conflicts, there are dilemmas, there are contradictions in our thoughts, action, feelings, etc. So, which actually always are not in consonance with our mind or the thought process, but however how we can learn to live with these contradictions. Okay. So, that is the ability to hold the contradictory thoughts and feelings without having to resolve the contradictions. So, knowledge of stress and how to know when you are stressed, how to understand ourselves, our mental health, what can help, how can we resolve our conflicts, how can we reduce our strain, our stress, how to avoid the burnout like being the workaholic or overstressed with work, or unable to maintain the work-life balance or something, because of this kind of work related or burden related some factors. How that means for teachers, teacher burnout, like teacher burnout means when they are over exhausted, exhausted, when they are actually they are whatever they are able to do, that means they are doing it, that means they are doing it beyond their capacity, beyond their ability. So that is called that causes the burnout or the stress, etc. So, but how to reduce that? With the strategic planning, mindfulness activities, regular exercise, meditation, deep breathing. So, that kind of thing, knowledge of stress management. So, these are things. Ability to cultivate awareness, the skills to be present, and to be present, to be aware of the state of being beyond your rational mind. Yes, like even that means thought is there, mind is there, rational mind is there, but how at the affective domain, at the feeling, at the emotional domain, how can we be at peace, in the sense that we are very much aware of our present state of mind, we can take control of our emotions, our thoughts and feelings. So, that is to cultivate that kind of awareness, the skills to be present. Nowadays, that means through the practice of mindfulness, how to be present, how to be mindful, how to be focused in our present, and which in the rational mind we often we seek to get the logics and thoughts, but how to practice these things. Being mindful means we are focusing on the present, being cool and calm and quiet, and try to resolve out the present current issue. So, that is the how to cultivate that kind of awareness. Then again, to knowledge, ability to find the inner state of peace and compassion, to develop all these positive characteristics, strengths like optimism, resilience, compassion, empathy, gratitude, then resilience, then helping others, then thinking for the society, that is developing a service orientations, all, and the peaceful, making peace, that means peaceful learning, peaceful mindset, broad mindset and peaceful thought process. So, that means peace loving person, that is to settle down all kinds of the conflicts, so not going for any kind of controversy or all kinds of any kind of scandal. So, being argumentative, being argument, and the being a part of any kind of discussion, that is okay, but purposeful you can say blaming and accusation to create the chaos and conflict, that is not the judicious process. So, how to develop this kind of ability to draw the consensus, to maintain the inner peace, and how to draw the how to draw a peaceful conclusion or take the peaceful decision after having the dialogue or discussion with the democratic discussion with other peers, colleagues and the friends. So, the ability to make meaning out of experience. Yes, whatever experience we are facing, we are accumulating, we are gathering in our lifetime, like for example, from this pandemic itself. So, 2020 and 2021 has given us a lot of experiences and exposure to different kind of experiences. But again, in general, when we view it in general, when we reflect on this experience, we can draw some plus points, some negative points as well. So, but what is our overall view of our experiences? How do we value these 2 years experience of pandemic experience? We can say that yes, and number, these are the weaknesses, these are the setbacks and so and so. But at the same time, when we reflect on these advantages, it's try to explore the positive aspects of the situation, like yes, these 2 years have been the learning experiences from which we could learn about engaging ourselves in a very more constructive way, even if when we are alone, even if at home we are staying alone, then enhancing our self sufficiency, and yes, enhancing our technological skills, competencies, engaging ourselves in different kinds of creative activities, and even within that individual space or the like when we are staying alone at home, how can we also establish the rapport, communication and contact with others, in engaging ourselves in doing something positive and constructive for not only for ourselves, for the society. So, these kind of things we have to explore it from our experiences, that what are the new things, learning opportunities and learning learning experiences that we have, learning inputs that we have gathered from our experience. Okay. Then the ability to experience and deepen the love and connection to yourself and other humans and non-human. Yes, of course, during this pandemic time, we have spent most of the time with ourself, individual self. So definitely it has given us an opportunity and enough time to self explore, to deeply contemplate on our likings, dislikings, setbacks, strengths, weaknesses, etc. When we analyze our experiences, when we analyze our individual thoughts, loneliness, home environment, all the challenges that we are facing, not that it has developed a kind of competency of self-sufficiency that we can manage our own self, but at the same time how can we relate ourselves with others. We can also discharge our responsibility both in home front, both in academic front, in the business front, work front. So, and how to within that sphere of life, that phase of life, how can we also establish a healthy relationship, bonding and emotional attachment with other humans, with other friends, even in the non-human world also. How can we connect ourselves to other external world, both in the human and the non-human world. So, then these are some of the things. So, again using the competencies and assessment framework, again SDG 4.7, that is the ESD and global citizenship. So, these are also the these are also the highlighting points like human rights. What do we mean by human rights? How to ensure the human rights, equal human rights among our citizens, gender equality in terms of education, access to education, access and opportunities for higher education, the employment sources, work, pay package, all kinds of things, all kinds of access, privileges and incentives and opportunities. So, that is the gender equality, that you have to develop these aspects also in terms of education, information and dissemination. Then promotion of the culture of peace and non-violence. Yes, any kind of complex critical issues or challenge, social conflict and dilemma, etc., that both individual dilemma as well as the social conflict, work related conflict, group conflict, everything can be settled down with a promotion by developing a culture of peace and non-violence. So, that kind of ethical values, standards and mindset and attitudes should be incorporated in the system, education system, and inculcated within the individual character. So, developing a culture of peace, everything can be settled down, whatever may be the difficulty level or complexity of the situation. So, through peaceful negotiation, peaceful discussion, peaceful engagement and non-violence should be the approach. So, through this how to promote these two things. Then again, yes, global citizenship, that is being Indian or being a resident of a particular state, etc. Even if we are we have to look into the local needs, local context, local priorities, etc., but at the same time fulfilling all our local needs, requirements and individual needs, etc. But how can we take the responsibility of being a global citizen, to behave responsibly, to take the responsibility of discharging discharging our service towards the planet Earth, towards the global world in terms of economic growth, in terms of environment protection, or in terms of conserving our resources, in terms of establishing a healthy relationship with the human resource, that means with the networking. So, in all domains, social domain, economic domain and the ecological domain or environmental domain, how can we behave like a global citizen in taking the ownership and responsibility of taking care of all these three spheres, three bottom lines of our planet Earth, that is the global citizens. So, being the first of all you are a global citizen, that being the global citizen you must abide by that means universal truth, universal laws, values, ethics, morals and act accordingly, so that you should not damage, you not hurt any segment of the population or any particular community. So, then again appreciation of the cultural diversity. Yes, cultural diversity is there, India is the best example. So, we have already from the very beginning we have learned how to adopt into different cultural background diversity, along to live with the diversity. That is the benefit of our country and our culture. But again when we are exposed to other countries and other culture also, So, how to appreciate their cultural factors, how to appreciate their cultural diversity, how to understand their cultural nuances, and how these cultural differences also contribute towards the sustainable development, how it can be like every culture has some specific characteristics and features, how to leverage it to understand it better, and how to leverage it for the common development, for the community development, for the holistic development and sustainable development. So, appreciation of cultural diversity, understanding the cultural nuances and the feature and unique features, and to leverage it for the common development or holistic development of the planet or the sustainable development, common sustainable development. So, again activating competencies through multiple intelligences. Okay. So, multiple intelligence, that is how to develop multiple intelligence proposed by Howard Gardner. So, there are different theories of intelligence, and Howard Gardner as a psychologist, as a theorist, he has proposed that the individuals, human beings are having the multiple intelligences. Initially, he has said that 7 intelligences are there, and later on other 2 more types of intelligence have been added. So, that we will discuss in the next class. Okay. Multiple intelligence as proposed by Howard Gardner, and how it is going to help us in enhancing a human capacity building, and in our social interaction, in communication, and how it helps us in to establish that kind of sustainable living, sustainable lifestyle, etc. That we will discuss in the next class. So, thank you.